Welcome to our hormonal hair growth info session. I'm Salome Sallehy. I'm the founder of Sugar Wax. I founded Sugar Wax about 3 years ago because I was really sick and tired of the hair struggle, and I really wanted to create a product that would be easy to use and safe for everyone. But today, we're not really here to talk about that story. Today, we're here to talk about hormonal hair growth because there's so much that is so little understood. And while so many of you might know so much, I just wanted to kind of bring up some recent research as well. Now, I can't tell you how many emails and DMs we get that are telling us, I've been struggling with hair for years, or my daughter's struggling with hair, or whatever the story might be. And I really haven't been able to find a product. Is this going to work for me? And, as advocates of information and empowering people with information, we really wanted to take a quick little opportunity and kind of paint the picture of how hair growth happens and why there's so much misunderstanding about hair growth, especially hormonal hair growth, so that we can start dealing with the problem. Because when you understand a problem, you're better equipped to deal with it. All right, so let's get right into it. So first things first, I wanted to share a little bit of research that has surfaced recently about NCAH, which is non-classical adrenal hyperplasia, which is a congenital disorder, but it doesn't show up until later in life. And what that is the adrenal glands that sit on top of the kidneys have a deficit in producing a certain type of hormone. It's very specific. But the reason why I bring that up today is because so many people with NCAH often get diagnosed with PCOS. So I think if you are not sure, or you've never found cysts, or you're finding that you have adrenal deficits as well, it's definitely worth having that conversation with your doctor about, have we definitely ruled out non-classical adrenal hyperplasia? Both PCOS and NCAH definitely contribute to hirsutism, which is also known as hormonal hair growth. And what happens in that situation is there's really two sides of the story. One side is the production of the hormones. So you could have your hormonal glands overproducing androgens like testosterone, dihydrotestosterone, or any of their prohormones, or the problem could actually be at the receptor site. So your androgen receptors could be overactive as well. And how does this relate to hair? Well, all of us are covered in vellus hair, which is very slow growing, not very visible, very fine, and usually quite short. And what happens when our androgen hormones or androgynous hormones go to the active androgen receptor sites, those androgen receptor sites, they're all over, but for the purposes of our conversation, I'm specifically talking about the androgen receptor sites around the follicle of the hair. And what happens is this meeting happens, and that vellus hair, which is really fine and not visible, becomes terminal hair, which is darker, coarser, thicker, and it grows a lot faster. So that's a little bit of background for you. And it's a very complex web of hormone cycling that happens in our bodies that causes hair growth. But when you have accelerated hair growth, hormonal hair growth, and it's a lot to manage, this is where we want to get into how do we deal with all of this? And that's why I'm here, your fairy fuzz mother. So just so you know, over 70% of hirsutism is currently attributed to PCOS. So that is definitely the most common cause of hirsutism in women. And before I move any further, I just want to say this one thing. All hair is natural. By talking about hair, we're normalizing it. And so many of us have struggled with body hair in one way or another. And we want to, just have tools to deal with it. And some people really like the hair and they embrace it and they celebrate it. And that's beautiful. And some people have a different standard of beauty. And regardless of what you feel is beautiful, there is enough room in this world for the many, many versions of beauty. So this is not to I really, really want to underscore this because I think in our Instagram culture of, everyone's like bare bodies and smooth and slick like a dolphin, it can be kind of discouraging to embrace the idea that we all do actually have hair, but it's a fact. Now, our mission here at Sugar Wax is to normalize body hair and provide a tool that's safe and simple for all people to use if you want to get rid of body hair. And it is a tool. So also, many of you were invited to this event because you have a voice in your community. And, we want to let people know that there are options and not to be discouraged. And even if you have a hormonal hair growth condition, really coarse hair, or if you are struggling with it, we're here for you and there are tools and options, and talking about hair is normal. So let's normalize it and talk about it with your audiences as well. I'm really, really proud of the fact that we've been able to help hundreds of people who have been affected by hirsutism since, being born Sugar Wax. And for a young and small company, that's a lot of people we've helped. And not every brand in the beauty space can make that claim that they have been able to make a difference in the lives of their customers. So I'm really proud of that. So why does the Glow Goop work? And I'm going to get a little into the science of this because I want you to understand how this all goes down. I'm going to see if my sugar wax here is in the right condition for me to also maybe do a demo. Let's see, this is how I test it. I make a dent. It's a little bit harder than I would love it to be, but it's still good enough. So while I squeeze this out, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. So what this does, the Glow Goop works in two ways. One, it gets rid of unwanted hair rather painlessly, effectively on every type of hair, even on the most sensitive skin, which I'll elaborate on in a minute. And the second way is that if applied properly and cycled correctly, it can actually slow down your hair growth almost permanently. And I say almost permanently because any hormonal event like puberty, pregnancy, menopause can override and reset your hair growth patterns. This is also one of the big reasons why I don't recommend. See, I'm really struggling with it because it's hard, but I want it to be hard to start with because it's going to soften on application. This is why I recommend to moms who are thinking about getting their teenage daughters lasered. I tell them it's kind of a waste of money. I mean, because their hormones are so in flux that hair growth really is a function of your hormones. And genetics, but today we're not talking about genetics. Okay, so I've scooped out a little piece. I want to get these little stringy bits back, nice and clean. And right away, I want to put the lid on it because I don't want any ambient moisture to get into my jar because it's going to create this like sappy layer, which nobody needs. Now, I want to talk, first I'll explain how this formula works to get rid of hair, and then I'm going to show you how to slow down hair growth. Okay, so first things first, super simple. For those of you who haven't watched any of our videos, any of our demos, I use a powder because the skin needs to be dry, very dry, because sugar is, as you know, water soluble. You put it in your coffee. So I want the skin to be dry, so I really rub in the powder to make sure that it's absorbing any moisture, sweat, or oils. And then the application of it is as such. You press it, and the first press is going to be a little long and slow because you want your skin to heat up the sugar wax. And you pull it against the direction of hair growth, okay? So it's the opposite of waxing. And you go over it 2, 3, you could do 4 times, but 3 is really the magic number. And what I'm doing, as you could see, is I'm pulling this, like really pressing and pulling it, but I'm also moving the bulk of the wax to the bottom or the end, because that's what I'm going to use to lift and flick. So now I've gone over 3 times. I kind of get the edge off and I flick. And you've got like the dead skin and the hair in there. And so why this works and why this works on every type of hair, on every type of skin, is the magic of this formula is that, well, first of all, it removes hair from the follicle, which is going to become really important when we talk about how to slow down hair growth. But it's also painless because the magic of this formula is that there's very little, almost no water in it. So it actually doesn't bind to any living skin cells. It only binds to dead skin and hair because they're the same molecular structure. And that means that, you know, you can have acne, psoriasis, eczema. Psoriasis is a little tricky because it depends on how extreme the psoriasis is and the level of scaling on the skin. But for mild to moderate psoriasis, you should be able to use this. And the reason why it's gentle on skin is because it's actually not attaching itself to any of your living skin cells and ripping off any of your skin, because you need your skin. And that means that, you know, I can go over the same area multiple times. Oh, I forgot to tell you. So you reuse the same piece 8 to 10 times, and you'll see it gets soft and it'll be ready to remove. And then I grab the end and then I flick. And you want the flick to be quick. Oh my gosh, look at it's hard to see, but my skin here is so much smoother now because I'm removing all the dead skin. You forget how much dead skin grows on your hands. So you can reuse this 8 to 10 times. And when you're done with it, just throw it in the compost. But going back to why this is not painful, it's basically painless. If you've had a salon sugaring experience, and I hear this a lot, especially bikini waxes with sugar, I have to say that this is not the same formula. I hear this a lot from people who have had salon waxing experiences, and they're like, oh my God, it was just as painful as waxing. Salon formulas have a lot more water in them. And if they're not doing the technique perfectly, it could be really painful. But this, like, we have 10-year-olds using it, and it's super easy. You don't need a spatula. You don't need strips. You don't need anything. You just need to get the consistency right. And as it starts to melt, it might stick to your finger, and that's okay, because then you just use your finger as your anchor and then you flick. And there you go. Now, let me just make sure I haven't missed anything. Yeah, so its inability to stick to living cells also means you can't make any mistakes, or you can make mistakes. It's super forgiving. Now, disclaimer, Not all sugar waxes are made the exact same. We specifically made this formula to function in the way that it does. We specifically designed this so that it doesn't stick to live skin cells, so that people with super, super sensitive skin, like myself with eczema, can use it. Now, before I get into the questions, how to slow down hair growth. And this is one of my favorite tips to share, especially with people who are suffering from hormonal hair growth, because it does tend to be a lot faster. It does make your hair grow a lot faster than people who don't have that condition. Okay, so going back to our first science lesson, remember those androgen receptor sites that are basically surrounding and in the cells surrounding the follicle. So those guys interact with testosterone or androgens. Testosterone is one of the androgens, but they interact with androgens, which activates hair growth. Now, when we remove the hair from the follicle, we're mitigating that interaction that happens. So when you think about cycles of hair growth, the most active cycle or the most active phase of hair growth is the anagen phase, which is the first phase when the hair is growing very actively. And you want to disrupt that connection between the receptors, the androgen receptors, and the androgens that are being released by your body as much as possible. And you can do that with sugar, because you don't have to wait for the hair to fully grow out. A lot of times, by the time that the hair reaches that quarter-inch length, it has already, it's on the tail end of the anagen phase. And what you're doing is not as effective. You want to remove the hair from the follicle at the most active phase of the anagen phase. So here is the recommendation. Write this down if you are not already doing this. So you remove hair, you sugar it, get rid of the hair, and sort of sidebar for a really quick second. The reason why we pull against the direction of growth and remove it in the direction of hair growth is so that the hair doesn't break and you remove more follicles than when you pull them the opposite direction of hair growth. So the hair is growing like this way and you pull it back this way, you get that snapping action, creates a lot of breakage. So you're removing the hair from the follicles, you're sugaring. And depending on your rate of hair growth, as soon as you see 1/8 of an inch, which is enough to sugar with, it's basically a little stubble, but the shaft of the hair is longer than the follicle that's underneath the skin, you sugar it again. And that time period between the first sugaring session and the second sugaring session, it could be from 1 to 2.5 weeks. It's usually not longer than that. If you're hitting the 3-week mark, you've waited too long. And you do that in 3 consecutive cycles. So on the hormone level, what happens is that the androgens that are coming to tell the androgen receptors, hey, we got to stimulate hair growth, you're breaking that relationship up. But on a physiological level, you're also breaking up the relationship between the follicle and the blood vessels that feed it, that allow it to grow. So you, on 2 physiological, aspects, you are stunting hair growth. Now, if you do this for a minimum of 3 really short cycles, you do it 3 short cycles. So you sugar, 1.5 weeks later or a week later, you sugar again. That's your second cycle. And then you do it for a third time, another 1.5 weeks later. That will slow hair growth down. And this has been seen in research where it slows the hair growth down by as much as up to 50%. And the hair will also grow back finer because there's not as much stimulation and not as much feeding of that follicle, not as much nutrition being delivered to the follicle to grow as thick as it did. So it'll grow back finer and slower. And what you want to do after that, you could go for a fourth phase or a fourth cycle. But if you notice that the hair is already starting to slow down, then what you do is you just stay consistent with it. Now, this is not a good example because I don't have any arms on my hair on my forearms because I did a demo last week. But over here, I had like hair. And now I can barely even see the hair. I don't know if you can, but it's barely visible. So staying consistent with sugaring and removing the hair from the follicle will definitely lead to needing to do it a lot less often. So that's my tip to share with you guys today. And I want to get to a couple of questions that were submitted, but let me just quickly take a second and check the chat. If anyone has dropped any questions in there. Where are you, chat? Okay, let's see, chat. Okay, no questions. That is great. That means I'm being super thorough. Or you guys can't hear me, one or the other. Okay, let's get back to the questions that were pre-submitted. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, just to not here, let's close the chat. All right. Okay. So questions that were submitted. How long does the effect of sugaring last? This is a question that we get regularly. I have a question popping up. Let me answer this one and I'll get back to you. How long does the effect of sugaring last? For general, like average, it's 4 to 6 weeks. For hormonal hair growth, which tends to be a lot faster, it's usually 2 to 3 weeks. Now, let me just get back to this comment about my skin gets red every time I do it. So you'll have to elaborate on that a little bit, but generally, if your skin is getting red for a short period of time, like maybe up to an hour after you have removed hair, and you got to tell me, are you sugaring? Are you waxing? Are you sugaring in a salon? Are you using our product? Let me know. But it is normal for skin to get red for up to an hour, especially if you have sensitive skin. I definitely do. Right after you do it, because you are stimulating the skin. And it's the same thing with like dry brushing. Does the redness, let me know how long the redness lasts. Also, another thing that could aggravate redness a little bit more than usual to help it last a little bit longer is if you have inflammation in the body that might be there and it just flares up a little bit more when you stimulate skin. Let me know if that answers your question, but I would really, really like to know how long the redness lasts. Even like non-sensitive skin, depending on the skin type, texture, thickness, redness is really, really normal, but it shouldn't be lasting for like 6 hours or into the next day. But right away, it's totally fine. What helps is if you give the skin something that calms it down. So our Silk Slip serum, it's hyaluronic acid and cotton leaf extract is in there. And what hyaluronic acid does is it plumps the cells up so that they could hold a little bit more water. That tends to calm the skin down a lot. Another thing you can use if you don't have our Silk Slip is like what I always do actually after sugaring is I'll do a cold rinse. whether it's with a damp towel, if I'm just doing like a spot air, like my forearms or whatever, or if I've done like my full arms, then I might just hop into the shower and just give myself like a little cool rinse just to calm down that inflammation. Very coarse, and I have very fair skin. Yeah, fair skin does tend to get red and stay red a little bit longer, but try what I'm recommending, which is just think about it like this. The skin has been stimulated, and if there's any underlying inflammation, it's gonna flare up. So what you want to do is calm the skin down. For really, really extreme cases, I've seen people take antihistamines, but I feel like that's a lot for your body to process all at once. So just calm it, cool it. Like, I don't like recommending aloe gel because little known fact about aloe is that a lot of people don't realize that aloe actually stimulates hair growth in the follicle. So it's not my favorite thing to recommend, but if you're really, really inflamed, try it. Try like a patch of it if you're really red and see if that works for you. And the trade up might be worth it. Like, it's not like aloe doesn't have the same effect as like your hormones, but it definitely, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just like paying attention to the comment that came in. My hair got worse with pregnancy. I'm 46. I will try it. Yes, pregnancy, menopause. Your hair is actually, as you get closer to menopause, some of your hair growth is going to like die down, but you'll see hair growing in places it didn't grow before. So all of these like hormonal events can actually reset where and how your hair grows. I'll give you an example, and this is super, super common. Like your extremity hair growth, like arms and legs, might slow way down. I mean, like we have customers that are past 50 that they will sugar an area and it won't go back for like 3 or 4 months. No kidding. But then you will probably have hair in places you didn't have before. Chin, neck, chest is very common. And those are where those androgen receptors live that, when you think about like a boy hitting puberty, and the testosterone and androgens that are running through his body are stimulating the androgen receptor sites to grow hair on the face, on the chest, under the arms. Now, when you're, for whatever reason, when you're having a hormonal event like menopause, perimenopause, the similar kind of thing could happen. Your androgen receptors might become a little bit more active, and your hormone production can also vary. So all we can do is, try to give you a tool to deal with that, get rid of the hair that you don't like, and hopefully see some relief from it for longer than other methods of hair removal. I highly, highly caution older people, older skin. I'm approaching that. Against electrolysis, because it does end up leaving scars, et cetera, et cetera. Let me just get to the next question. How long do I have to grow it out for? I'm assuming that the question is addressing, yes, all over the face and neck, but I'm assuming that the how long do I have to grow it out for is referring to the length of the hair. And as I mentioned earlier, you don't need the hair to be super long. Like, when you go for wax and you're like, I need to grow my hair out for them to be able to wax it. That is not the case with sugar wax because it doesn't work in the same way. The sugar wax is actually wrapping around the whole hair and binding to it. So you need about half the length of like, if you were to go waxing. Usually we say like, like half the length of a grain of rice or a sprinkle. And that will give you enough leverage. Now, when you're talking about facial hair, the whole hair, the full length of it might be less than half a grain of rice. And that's okay too, because the rule of thumb, there's some exceptions. Facial hair, which is really short, you have to remember that the follicles are also a lot shallower in the skin. They're not as deep in the skin. So you have, even with a little bit of stubble, you usually have enough leverage to remove that hair. Eyebrows are the exception because these are actually much deeper rooted. So you need these to be probably like between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch to be able to remove it effectively. But the rule of thumb is, as long as the hair above the skin is longer than underneath the skin, you have enough leverage with sugar. Another question that we get a lot, and it might be related to your comment there, is, can I use it? Where can I use it? And you can literally use the same Glow Goop sugar wax can be used on the face, on the body, on coarse hair, on fine hair, on every kind of hair. It's just how you apply it might vary just a tiny bit. For example, when you're removing underarm hair or bikini hair, those are areas that sweat really fast, or even the upper lip. You want to apply powder every time you apply it, because as soon as you start removing hair, the skin's going to react by producing sweat, and that sweat is going to not allow the sugar to bind to the hair. So lots of powder in sweaty areas, but you can literally use it everywhere. Face, I do like a sugaring facial. I used to do it like every 6 weeks. Now I probably do it every 3 months. But it's also a great exfoliant because it is removing the dead skin off of the face, which also allows for better product absorption. Now, last question. If I'm new to sugaring, what products do I need? If you go on our website shop page, you'll see that we sell the products individually and also in bundles. If you are sugaring any area that is prone to acne or breaking out, and that could be the face, chest, or back, you want the whole kit and caboodle. And the whole kit, it has a cleanser, the powder. On the powder, when you're applying it to the face, I recommend using a blush brush. The wax and the serum. And the serum and the water are both 100 mLs. So it's over 3, it's like almost 3.5 ounces, which is it's gonna take you really nice and far. And you don't need very much of it. You'll see. That's the beauty of like really nice quality natural products, or closer to natural products, like ingredients derived from nature, is that they're very potent, and a little goes a long way. However, if you are just doing like extremities, like arms, legs, and like let's say even like underarms and bikini, though I do recommend cleaning those areas before you sugar anyway. You really only need, like, your essentials are the wax and the powder. This is the powder, and this is what we call I think it's called the Bare Essential or Bare Body Essentials bundle. And we also have a subscription service. So if you've got hair, we're here for you. And if you guys have any more questions, I always say I'm going to do these info sessions regularly and like every month, but it's just, life is crazy, gets in the way. I can't do them every month, but if you guys send us questions, you can send any question to hello@sugarsugarwax.com. We also do offer one-on-one consultations if you're having any trouble with the sugar and you're like, oh, I can't figure this out. Like one of us will like literally hop on Zoom or FaceTime with you and walk you through it. Calls take like 10 to 20 minutes at most, but we're here for you. Follow us on social to get regular updates and demos, and definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. I will try to leave links of those, not in the chat, but I'll send you emails following up with all of that. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you feel better equipped to talk about body hair and hair problems, and so we can all live in a more inclusive and accepting world. Thank you.